Welcome back. It's still your perfect morning starter on Channels Television. And as we progress in our conversations this morning, we're now looking at the matter of state police. It's no longer a matter of how it will be accomplished anymore, but a matter of time following the accelerated consideration on the floor of the Senate, during which the executive bill transmitted to it by President Bola Tinubu got accelerated hearing and passed second reading. And so depending on who you talked about state police, it appears opinions are still divided as to whether it is a silver bullet required to ensure that Nigeria's security challenges are addressed sufficiently and the much needed stability for our economic aspirations to be actualized, whether it is that solution required. Let's get right into it this morning again, and this time around we'll be looking at the state police subject from an experience standpoint, through the eyes of former Assistant Inspector General of Police, retired Mr. Wilson Inalegu, who joins us this morning from our Abuja studio. Retired AIG, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And so I'd like to start this way. You are experienced. You've been in the institution. You were in the institution for a very long time. You served. You saw how the current police structure works. And so from hindsight, how do you suppose that the state police structure will work side by side with the federal police, what will now become federal police? What would the new architecture in state police look like?
Thank you. Well, I imagine it will look like, you're having a dual policing system. I think the Nigeria police is used to that, having a dual policing, because today, even though the Constitution prescribes that Section 214, 1999 Constitution, that there should be a single police force for Nigeria. But we're all aware that today you have the Nigeria police, where you have a Nigeria police division, some few meters away you still have the civil defense police, station. That is by the way. Now, come to state policing. Well, first of all, I think only thing I think is going to add is going to bring more personnel, more manpower to policing in Nigeria. Because the Nigeria police force today is grossly understaffed, grossly underfunded, logistics not provided. Otherwise, the Nigeria police force is a fantastic organization, is competent, is able to do the job of policing Nigeria. But there is no recognition for the police as to be able to enable them to deliver on their mandate. A police force that have very few vehicles, and where they are available, they are rickety. A police force that will personnel on check may have to get their own money to fuel vehicles. I think those are the challenge. It's not that the police is not familiar with terrain and all that. I think it's just to make more personnel available. That's what I think it brings. So if the police, Nigeria police, will be enforcing federal laws, and the state police will be talking about localized security issues, petty theft, and the Nigeria police will be dealing with counterterrorism, border security, organized crime, and then banditry and the rest of them. And the state police will now concentrate on localized issues. But I hope they are not brought to enforce. Since the Electoral Act is a federal law, I hope they will not be brought into it. Because in my opinion, the speed we are going about this, I hope they are not going to be involved, because they are not going to be trained sufficiently enough. It takes not less than 4 years to become a police officer. And then to ensure professionalism, if you draw people from thugs and other supporters to form the state police is going to cause chaos, is going to cause anarchy. So the only thing I think they are going to bring is the personnel that the Nigeria police does not have today, they may recruit and bring. But we are praying for that they will not use some members of vigilante or members of talk or supporters of political parties or individuals to form the nucleus of this police force. Because that has been the challenge. That was the challenge. That was why the late General Aguiyi Ironsi set up the Yusuf Gubi panel of inquiry to look at the operations of Palace Police, Native Authority Police, the Akoda, Dansanda, and the rest of it, the Native Authority Police. The idea was, look, are they performing? Were they performing well? Because after the 1964 hotly contested national elections, there was chaos, there was anarchy everywhere. And I think they were fingered because majority of the police in the Native Authority were formed from supporters of political parties, were formed from talks and the rest of it. And that was a fear that was expressed in 1958 during, at the Wilkins Commission of Inquiry when the minorities expressed fears. So when it formed from there, then in 1966, the panel sat for almost 2 years. In 1968, in March precisely, General Yakubu Gowon, the head of state then, now released a white paper, and all the police forces merged with the Nigeria Police Force. And I remember in those days, even when we were young officers, when we joined the police force, and then when they say, they see that officer and they say, oh, it's a convertee, and a Native Authority Police. So even the federal police were looking at them with a certain perception. So if you are bringing state police, will you ensure professionalism? Will you give them the same training so that you don't set up your own police training school wherever they are coming from? They must operate a central training system so that they get familiar with each other. Both the federal police and the state police personnel get familiar right from training. I think there should be uniform training, and then there should be strict guardrails, firewalls. But I think it's very difficult because our institutions are very weak. Would they be strong enough to withstand the torrents of desperate politicians? That, for me, is a challenge.
They said they put some, AIG, they said they put some guardrails, you know, safeguards, all kinds of names. We've been interrogating it. But let's stay with what you have raised, the issue of training. Part of the amendment to the Constitution shows that there will be a minimum requirement. However, every state cannot go below. You can go far and above, depending on the uniqueness of your state. So, operationalization, let's say, for instance, let's give a hypothetical situation. Let's say between now and, say, December, state police becomes constitutional. And if there are states that are ready, because not every state that will be ready immediately, for those states, the federal police will surface. If there are states that are ready to, you know, have their own state police, are they going to get already existing policemen from the federal to join, or they're going to train new people? And you said 4 years. The reason I'm asking this question is your mention of 4 years. Does it mean we have to wait till maybe 2030, maybe one, to begin to have effectively state police? What are you trying to say in essence, for the kind of standard policing that you're talking about?
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is you cannot bring people, give them crash training, train them for 6 months as recruit constables, and you deploy them to the field. They need mentorship. They need training and retraining. And in the Nigeria Police Force, we call them development courses. Those trainings are very critical. And before you have somebody have some modicum of professionalism, it takes a minimum of 4 years. And so if you train them for example, for 6 months, are you going to deploy them for sensitive duty, like election duty? For example, if they were guys exposed to thuggery, how are you going to reorient them? How are you going to give them a new orientation? How are you going to get them to become really professional? So no matter what they do, what you do, I don't think they are going to be effective. And it's very few states that will be able to do that. So the concern that I raise in this issue is that, yes, the laws have been passed, but practicalizing it, operationalizing it on the field is going to be challenging. And the officers presently in the Nigeria Police Force, are they going to accept to take retirement from the federal police and be re-engaged and be engaged in the state police? Are they going to do that? Perhaps Lagos, Akwa Ibom, Rivers may have attractive benefits that may be more. For today, I think it's Lagos and Rivers or Akwa Ibom or Delta, perhaps Kaduna and Kano, that may have the capacity to be able to have the police force. Ordinarily, state police should have been a good thing. In the U.S. it's practiced, and that is the system with the U.S. Every state have their own police forces, but you know they have a more developed democracy, and then they have a lot of guardrails or firewalls that are able to keep politicians in check. But you know our institutions here are weak. Lots of complaints, lots of apprehension among the public, and justifiably so. So even if they pass the law today, I'm not sure any state is going to be able to have that police force that can function in this democracy, perhaps going forward, in which will give the opportunity to have these officers properly trained. Because it's not a military, it's not army that maybe you just gather recruits, train them 3 months or 6 months, give them AK or AK-49 and the rest of them to go to the field. This involves a lot of emotional intelligence, psychology, interaction with public, getting building confidence, building the confidence of the public, trust building, especially in a situation where there's general apprehension among the public. And the experience of the 1964 election to 1966 is still fresh in the mind of those who were alive then. So that is the challenge. I think the training will go well, but police is not something just you have trained. That is why, like other agencies who deploy to the field, they do 3 months, 6 months, go back to training. No, because the police is a critical institution that has primacy on internal security, on public order management, on crime prevention. And this is a critical institution worldwide. And let me tell you, by the time we begin to have an effective police force that is catered for, the development of Nigeria will begin to rise. Nigeria will only develop with an effective police force. And the state police may be good, but are we starting well? I think that is the challenge. And if every mind is going to be a mindset that, look, I'm looking at Nigeria, my country. I'm looking at what is happening in our community, kidnap of skilled children, mass kidnap of people from communities, banditry, and the rest of it. If I am looking at it from that perspective, then it's good. But you and I know that some people have misguided opinion or intention, if I may say, about community police, state policing. Yes, it's good to give power. We are in a federation. All the states are supposed to have that. But then there were concerns expressed in the past by minorities, by different groups. Yeah. And those from the 1958, for the events of 64 to 66, showed that the minority fears of 1958, which led to the Wilkins Commission, were not misplaced by the way they were misused.
Yeah. So AIG, you express a valid concern on the matter of training. If we look at our most recent history, and we recall sour police civil relations, hence the hashtag EndSARS protest of 2020. And some would say that the morning shows the day if what we have is this current policing structure that may be replicated in the state policing, then we're just reinventing the wheel and the problem has not been solved. So in addressing the matter of training, do you align with the views of those who say we already have, an abundance of structures? The NSCDC, some have neighborhood watch in their states, and some have a security initiative. So these people, these institutions at the subnational level already have some form of training. Would you align with the thought that this can be collapsed into a form of state police structure such that we have just less time to ensure the training that we require sets the stage for an actualization of state police?
Yeah, but you see, there are orientations that if you carry from where you are coming from, because if you come to the mainstream policing with those orientation, they may not work. As a divisional police officer many years ago, I knew the battle I fought with vigilante. They believe in quick fix. They think the prosecutorial process is lengthy and unnecessary. They just want to get somebody a matter done, and then it is done like that. So the main thing that I see in all of this is it is about intention. One of the funny things that, let me describe it as funny. There has been a lot of reforms of the Nigeria police force. The AIG offices were set up as zonal IGs to be able to have supervisory oversight on the commissioners of police in the divisions. And those structures were not funded. I think the AIGs never had funding to send their officers to begin to monitor, mentor, and see what the officers on the field were doing. And I think those were issues that are very critical. Yes, you can collapse, but like I told you, police requires specialized skill in handling of issues. It is not the enemy is there, take gun, or yeah, face them. No. It's not like that. So those you can, but going to SIFT to look at those who are qualified from these parallel organizations. It was done before. I think in 1979, when after the Civil War was over and they saw that they had military personnel that they were going to release into the public. Some of them who were considered good enough were offloaded to the Nigeria police. Some of them did very well, some not so well. But it took a long time for them to get to get integrated and to internalize the policing culture. So it is not like a tap you open, water flows, and then you do the water flows. So that is a challenge. It's because of the specialized nature of police. And my experience, let me tell you, I have been part of the United Nations peacekeeping forces from 1989 in Namibia and in Sierra Leone several times. And many countries attach a lot of importance to policing because the development of a country is tied to law enforcement, effective policing, because you've got to get it right. And then building police is a gradual thing. It took us, then the country when I was there, they wanted to have a national police force of 8,000, small police force. They started from 6,000, and they started with the change management. And it was a lengthy process. From there, you graduate to the other arm, and gradually they begin to civilianize the police force, and then gradually, and then they turn out they became a police for good. So, like what I'm trying to say is that these things it takes time, it takes effort, and then it takes some patience to be able to build a Nigeria.
Winding down, I know that I mentioned guardrails. I'm sure that maybe when you look at the laws, let's hope that these things can be implemented. From your expertise and your experience, when should we effectively start expecting, if we are serious, despite the urgency that it requires because of what we're experiencing now, when should we start having active state policing? No, it doesn't matter the state that is ready. I know Lagos may be ready, Rivers, maybe the FCT, or maybe Kano. At least those four may be ready.
Yeah.
How soon do you think, if we're to get the real result we need to raise these state police guys, how soon should they be ready? 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months?
No, like if we, once the law is passed and the recruitment process starts, I imagine that by December, but we have an election as a priority, might be immediately after the election, those officers are sent to training, they spend 6 months, and then those from the existing police force, Nigerian police, if some CSPs or ACs want to join the state police, they form the initial, the nucleus, and they will start. So I imagine that when you train them and you give them retraining, it will take, might be in the next 2-3 years, gradually we'll begin to metamorphose into the police. Even look at the EFCC. When they started, they had a lot of input of Nigeria police force, and gradually they got their people recruited, appointed, and then gradually they began to train them, and that took more than 5 years, if not more, maybe 5-6 years. I don't have my timing correct, but what I'm trying to say, to have an effective police force will require patience, and this patience, like I said, by 4 years they begin to manifest. They begin to show those characteristics of observation, investigation, and then you begin to see community engagement, effective community engagement, not seeing themselves as part of community. And then the states will not be thinking of building barracks. They begin to give them mortgage loans, because this state police should not begin to think of having barracks. Rather, I think they should give them the housing so that it will become an incentive. That means you take a mortgage. As you take this mortgage, it should run throughout your 35 years in service, which means if you go collect bribe and you are apprehended, tried and dismissed, you could have a foreclosure of your house, of the property that you have. That will become a kind of a check. But like the mobile police force, which I think the Nigerian police force will have, will continue to retain, will be there, we can have concentrated barracks. But these state police officers, the governor should not think of beginning to build barracks. But I think what they need to do is to have mortgage facilities for them so that they can live among the population and interact, so that the population can see them, they can see the population, so that they are just all over the place. And then these mortgage loans, they will give these officers, which they will be paying on a monthly, servicing on a monthly basis will help. And they know that if after 10 years you engage in corrupt practice, you are not able to continue to pay. So the fear of losing or having their families thrown out of the property they have bought on this will begin to act as a check on any corruption tendency they may have. I think, and that will be a morale booster for the officers to give their best. Welfare is a critical element. Good salary is an important element. Good uniforms.
Yeah.
A well-dressed officer with that confidence.
Yeah. You know, retired AIG, by all levels, this has been a very productive conversation, and we thank you for bringing your experience to bear on the subject of state police. Wilson Inalego is a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police and former Police Commissioner in Kogi State. Thank you for joining us on the program, sir.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Well, Well, that's how it's been on the program today. Thank you so much for your time and company on the program. It's the new week, and we look forward to telling good stories. Speaking of which, it's been more than 40 days now that the Oyo captives have remained in captivity. We hope for a safe return of all kidnapped victims from Oyo to Ekiti, Kogi. We hope that they return sooner rather than later, and our hearts go out to their family members at this particular point in time.
The prayer is that they will return as soon as possible. Thank you for your time and company. Sunrise Daily is up at the top of the hour. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.